We'll be live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India and China hold strategic dialogue in New Delhi while Beijing backs a successful BRICS summit in India. The two sides also discuss issues ranging from border peace and people-to-people ties. U.S. President to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington today, talks to address Tehran's ballistic missiles. U.S. issues general license to boost oil and gas exploration production in Venezuela. U.S. administrators say Venezuela's crude production could see an increase up to 20% in coming months. White House says Trump fully supports Commerce Secretary Lutnick even as he acknowledges lunch on Epstein's private island but denies any closer relationship with the convicted sex offender. And on to the details now. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri held the India-China strategic dialogue with his Chinese counterpart, Executive Vice Foreign Minister Ma Xiaoxu, on Tuesday in New Delhi. During the talks, the two sides exchanged views on a wide gamut of issues covering bilateral, regional and international affairs. Bilateral discussions primarily focused on the recent progress made in stabilizing and rebuilding bilateral ties and ways to take bilateral engagement forward. India and China underlined the importance of peace and tranquility in the border areas for overall progress in bilateral relations. They reiterated their commitment to implement the guidance provided by the leaders, including on the need to proceed from a political and strategic direction to approach issues and concerns related to bilateral trade. Also during the dialogue, Foreign Secretary Misri noted the successful resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra and expressed hope for its continued expansion. Both sides also recognized the need to conclude an updated air services agreement at an early stage and agreed to continue taking practical steps to facilitate visa processing and promote people-to-people exchanges. The discussions also covered multilateral cooperation, including during India's BRICS chairmanship this year. Also, the Chinese side expressed its support for a successful BRICS summit in India. The Executive Vice Foreign Minister also conveyed that China understands and respects India's aspirations for UNSC membership. And in a significant crackdown ahead of the India AI Impact Summit, India has brought in stricter rules for online platforms on handling AI-generated and synthetic content, including deepfakes. The rules makes it mandatory for platforms such as X and Instagram to take down any such content flagged by a competent authority or courts within 3 hours. India has made major amendments to the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021 to curb fake and misleading content generated by AI on the internet and social media platforms. The new amendments will come into effect on February 20th, 2026. These changes significantly increase the responsibility of social media companies and other digital platforms regarding deepfakes and AI-generated content. And as India gears up for the India AI Impact Summit 2026, a look at how artificial intelligence enables systems to learn from experience, adapt to new situations, and solve complex problems independently. At a time when AI is expected to take over 40% of jobs globally, the Government of India is taking various initiatives to expand the AI ecosystem and connect the AI opportunities to the youth.
Usage of artificial intelligence-based applications is growing at a rapid pace around the world. AI skills are among the fastest growing skills, which means that there's an opportunity for many industries to invest more heavily in their AI capabilities. The growing knowledge of AI skills in the workforce is impacting different industries and job functions globally. Therefore, finding or keeping a job will require skill upgradation or learn new ones. According to the IMF, nearly 40% of global jobs are exposed to AI-driven change. Over 60% of jobs may be impacted by the AI in advanced economies, whereas AI exposure is expected to be 40% in emerging markets. The figure is expected to be around 26% in low-income countries. Professionals, particularly in the IT sector, are seeing the most demand for new skills. Trends also suggest that employers pay more for workers who acquire emerging skills. India too faces the challenges of artificial intelligence integration and its impact on job creation. The government of India considers AI to be a kinetic enabler for the growth of the country's digital economy, investments and jobs. India's artificial intelligence strategy aims to address India-centric challenges and create opportunities and jobs in AI. As per the Standard AI Index Report 2025, India has secured the third position globally in artificial intelligence competitiveness. India leads the world in AI talent acquisition with an annual hiring rate of about 33%. India's AI talent base is expected to more than double by 2027 with a compound annual growth rate of around 15%. The country has seen the AI talent concentration grow more than threefold since 2016.
AI right now, there is a lot of sometimes fear around job loss. There's a lot of investment that has gone into it, which people are looking for returns on investment. It is our job as technologists to ensure that that magic translates to value for the common man.
Despite the opportunities, uncertainty persists regarding the types of jobs AI will create, their long-term sustainability, and the skills they will demand. Preparing the workforce to navigate these transformations is no longer optional. It has become an imperative for governments, industries, and educational institutions alike. Bureau Report, DD India.
And as artificial intelligence takes rapid leaps every day, presenting both unprecedented opportunities and serious challenges, governments across the world are racing to regulate it, aiming to make AI safer, fairer, and more beneficial for humanity. By early 2026, while Europe, the United States, China, Latin America are following very different regulatory paths, the United Nations is pushing for global coordination. India, in the meantime, is arguing for democratization and inclusivity of AI. Here's a report by correspondent Akhilesh Suman on how the world is trying to take the AI bull by the horns for practice and regulation according to local priorities.
The EU AI Act came into force on August 1, 2024. The law for AI regulation follows a risk-based approach, classifying AI systems as unacceptable, high, limited, or minimal risk. It bans AI applications that pose unacceptable risks such as social scoring and manipulative AI, and places strict compliance obligations on high-risk systems used in healthcare, law enforcement, and employment. Low-risk systems are subject mainly to transparency and disclosure norms. The United States still does not have a comprehensive AI law. President Donald Trump has replaced earlier policies with a new executive order focused on maintaining America's global dominance in artificial intelligence. As the world's largest AI innovator, including OpenAI, ChatGPT, and self-driving mechanisms like Tesla, the US continues to debate how much regulation is necessary without stifling innovation. China has opted for tight state control over artificial intelligence. It mandates algorithm registration, security reviews, and clear labeling of AI-generated content, particularly for systems that influence public opinion. While there is still no single comprehensive AI law, China's 2026 guidelines make watermarking of deepfakes mandatory. In December, China released a draft policy targeting AI services that offer human-like interaction, including companion chatbots such as Xingyi, developed by Chinese startup Minimax. The proposed rules aim to prevent psychological dependence on AI companions, mandating that companions must not pursue design goals of replacing social interaction. India released its AI governance guidelines in November 2025, anchored in principles of trust, inclusion, and safety. At the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized that artificial intelligence should be developed in a manner where human resources become assets, not liabilities. Brazil has passed a risk-based AI bill. The United Kingdom follows a principles-led, sector-specific regulatory model. And the G7 is promoting voluntary global norms through the Hiroshima AI process. With national regulations increasingly fragmented, the United Nations has stepped in. Its 2024 report titled Governing AI for Humanity calls for stronger global cooperation to manage AI risks. The UN recently also established an independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence to provide assessment on the risks, opportunities, and societal impact of AI. As artificial intelligence continues to grow in power and influence, the real global test is not in just innovation, but also in effective coordination. How nations regulate AI today will have an overarching impact on the world's economic, political, and social order tomorrow. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
And French President Emmanuel Macron will pay an official visit to India on the 17th and 19th of February 2026. Ministry of External Affairs said that Macron will be visiting India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. During the visit, both leaders will hold discussions on strengthening bilateral cooperation across a wide spectrum of areas as enshrined in the Horizon 2047 roadmap. In addition, the leaders will discuss regional and global issues of mutual interest, including cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. The two leaders will also be in Mumbai to jointly inaugurate the India-France Year of Innovation, which will be celebrated throughout 2026 in both countries. On 19th of February, President Macron will participate in the AI Impact Summit in New Delhi. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar attended the BRICS 2026 Sherpas and country representatives meeting in New Delhi on Tuesday, marking an important milestone as the grouping completes 20 years of its journey. Dr. Jaishankar joined other leaders at the first BRICS Sherpa meeting being held from 9th to 11th of February in the capital. The gathering brought together representatives from BRICS nations to deliberate on the forum's future agenda and priorities. Speaking at the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar described BRICS as a valuable platform for international cooperation, consultation and coordination. He emphasized the grouping's people-centric agenda and its role in advancing shared priorities. Well, the Supreme Court of India issued notices to 17 states on Tuesday to ensure the setting up of special NIA courts in states where 10 or more cases are pending trial under anti-terror laws. The top court sought responses from the states after the Union Home Ministry submitted a comprehensive status report. The court asked the chief secretaries of the 17 states to respond within 3 weeks to the report to formalize the setting up of the special courts to ensure speedy trial and justice in such cases. It said a delay in trial leads to injustice if an accused is acquitted after a prolonged trial. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Starmer shrugs off Epstein's scandal, says he'll lead Labour into next election despite mounting pressure. And India's shooting gold tally hits 39 at Asian Championships as Prachi Gaikwad strikes a junior rifle gold.
On defense dynamics, India fires a message the world can't ignore. Agni 3, the strategic signaling to China and Pakistan. Why AMCA, India's 6th generation fighter, must be built by private players. Winning the low sky inside the Indian Army's radar reset. As middle powers rise, the arms market becomes a battlefield. And in my take, Pakistan's collapse and shock ahead. For all this and much more, tune in this Wednesday at 8 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. And moving on, U.S. President will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington on Wednesday. This will be the 7th meeting between Trump and Netanyahu since the U.S. President returned to office last year. They also met in Jerusalem in October last year when Trump announced a ceasefire in Gaza. Wednesday's meeting comes days after Iran and the United States held talks in Oman, after which Trump said another round of negotiations would follow. The discussion is also expected to focus on energy issues and deregulation.
Tomorrow here at the White House, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a bilateral meeting. The remainder of the week will be focused on energy and deregulation.
Well, earlier, talking to media before departing for U.S., Netanyahu said that he will discuss a range of issues with the U.S. president, including Gaza and Iran.
On this trip, we will discuss a series of issues: Gaza, the region, but of course, first and foremost, the negotiations with Iran. I will present to the President our positions regarding the principles of the negotiations, the important principles, and in my view, they are important not only for Israel, but for everyone in the world who wants peace and security in the Middle East.
Well, facing growing calls for his resignation, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick admitted to having lunch on Jeffrey Epstein's private island in 2012, but strenuously denied any closer relationship with the convicted sex offender. Now, Lutnick's ties to Epstein have come under intense scrutiny after email exchanges included in newly released files undermined his earlier insistence that he had cut all links with the late financier back in 2005. But records have emerged showing Lutnick's plans in 2012 to meet Epstein for lunch in Little St. James, notoriously known as Epstein Island. Asked if he saw anything untoward, Lutnick maintained that besides his family and that of another couple who were present, he only saw staff who worked for Epstein on the island.
I met Jeffrey Epstein when I moved to a house next door to him in New York, right? And I met him then. Over the next 14 years, I met him 2 other times that I can recall. 2 times. And that is none for 6 years. So 6 years later, I met him. And then a year and a half after that, I met him, and never again. Probably the total, and you've seen all of these documents, of these millions and millions of documents, there may be 10 emails connecting me with him, probably about 10 emails connecting me with him over a 14-year period. I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
Well, so far, President Donald Trump's administration has stood by Lutnick, with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying the president fully supports him.
No, Secretary Lutnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary.
Well, a day after fending off calls to resign over the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer tells reporters that he will lead his governing Labour Party into the next election. Under pressure over his appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington because of the Labour veteran's close ties to late Jeffrey Epstein, Starmer came out fighting, urging his party to fight the real enemy, the populist Reform UK party, rather than among themselves. He used a visit to a community centre in southern England to try to show that his political career was anything but dead, a day after the biggest challenge to his authority when Scottish leader Anas Sarwar called on him to quit and he lost a second aid in as many days.
Well, what's happened over the last few days is that we've pulled together as a party and been absolutely crystal clear about the fight we need to have. And that's the fight on behalf of all the people in this country who don't get the respect, the dignity, and the chance that they deserve in life. That is the fight that we are in. That's who we're fighting for. I'm their Prime Minister, and this is their government.
Well, the United States on Tuesday moved to further relax restrictions on Venezuela's oil sector, expanding efforts to let American companies resume operations after state controls were lifted. Now, the U.S. Treasury Department issued a license permitting certain transactions with Venezuela's government and state-run oil company, PDVSA, to supply goods, technology and software for oil and gas exploration and production. Additional licenses authorize specific dealings required for port and airport operations and allow limited activities involving Venezuelan origin crude. Washington has supported the government of interim President Delcy Rodriguez in exchange for access to vast oil reserves. And updates on Bangladesh general election now as Bangladesh prepares for voting in the 13th Jatiya Sangsad election on February 12th. Minority leaders and Islamic scholars have expressed support for the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, while concerns remain over violence and the election environment. A delegation from the Bangladesh Puja Ujjapan Parishad and the Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council met the BNP Election Management Committee on Tuesday night at its office in Dhaka. At the same time, leaders from different Islamic groups called on voters to support the BNP's election symbol, the sheaf of paddy. According to the Election Commission, 2,034 candidates are contesting the election. BNP has the highest number of candidates. Despite the heavy security presence, political violence has continued. Several people were injured in clashes between BNP and Jamaat activists in Bogura. With only days left before voting, questions remain about how peaceful and fair the election will be. And 12 people were killed and 8 others, including the driver, were injured after a bus fell into the Tamakoshi River in Nepal's Ramechhap district on Tuesday morning. The Araniko transport bus travelling from Kathmandu to Okhaldhanga veered off the road and plunged nearly 100 meters at Masantar in Mantali municipality. 10 of the deceased have been identified. The injured are being treated at Jeevan Hospital, Mantali Hospital and Tamakoshi Hospital. The driver has been taken into custody and search operations for remaining passengers are underway. And on to some sports news now. Let's take a look at today's action-packed group stage matches at the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. First, with only 2 teams slated to make the Super 8 from each group, Afghanistan find themselves in a must-win situation. South Africa are perched at the top after their 57-run victory over Canada, which bolstered their net run rate. On the other hand, a 5-wicket defeat to New Zealand saw Afghanistan slip to third with a negative net run rate, which they would have to improve in order to advance to the next round. Meanwhile, injury hit Australia began their World Cup campaign against Ireland, while Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood were already ruled out. Tim David has also missed the opening game as he continues to rehab his hamstring injury. Australia are also struggling for form, having been hammered by Pakistan 3-0 just before the start of T20 showpiece. Ireland will also look to bounce back from their loss against Sri Lanka and keep their Super 8 hopes alive. While England will take on West Indies in an evenly matched and crucial Group C clash over the World Cup in Mumbai, England survived a low-ranked Nepal, who came agonizingly close to upsetting them in their opening encounter. Both the teams have won the competition twice in the past and are chasing a third title win like the defending champions India. And in shooting, India's gold tally reached to 39 at the Asian Championship for Rifle and Pistol in New Delhi. Prachi Gaikwad clinched the gold medal in the junior women 50-meter rifle 3-position final with a score of 353.3 points. Kazakhstan's Tomiris Amanova won silver, while India's Anushka Thakur secured bronze with a score of 341.1 points after 34 shots. Akriti Dahiya won the silver medal in 50-meter rifle, while Olympian Anjum Modgil bagged bronze. Sofia Shuzenko of Kazakhstan finished at the top of the podium with a new world record score of 358.2. The accumulated total score of the shooters ensured India won the women team silver. And Italy's most decorated Winter Olympian Arianna Fontana led the team to gold in the mixed short track relay at the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics on Tuesday. It was the second gold for host Italy after Francesca Lollobrigida in 3,000 meters speed skating on Saturday. The four Italian skaters, Fontana, Elisa Confortola, Thomas Nandolini and Pietro Schigel, beat Canada and Belgium in the final with 12 Olympic medals. If Fontana wins another, she would tie Italian fencing champion Eduardo Mangiaro-Rotti for the most Olympic medals by any Italian. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, we can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.